Ezra's world cracked open the day his father vanished, leaving only a letter and a locked wooden box on the kitchen table. At 25, he thought he'd seen every shade of grief, but this was betrayal wrapped in mystery. He stood frozen in their Seattle home, the rain drumming against the windows, whispering secrets he wasn't ready to hear. The letter was in his father's jagged handwriting, the kind that always seemed to carry more weight than the words themselves. Ezra, I'm not who you think I am. I'm leaving to become Abigail, to live my truth as a woman. His dad, stoic, flannel-wearing, football-loving David, was transgender. The revelation hit like a tidal wave, sweeping away the foundation of Ezra's childhood. David, now Abigail, was gone, with no forwarding address, no explanation beyond the letter's sparse lines. And the box? It sat there, taunting him with a keyhole but no key, a puzzle he wasn't sure he wanted to solve. Ezra sank into a chair, the letter trembling in his hands. His father had always been his anchor, through his mother's death when he was 10, through the awkward years of high school when Ezra realized he was gay, through every quiet moment they'd shared fishing on Puget Sound. Now that anchor was unmoored, and Ezra felt like he was drowning. Why hadn't David trusted him enough to share this? Why leave now, after 25 years of being dad? The next morning, Ezra wandered Capitol Hill, Seattle's vibrant heart, where rainbow flags fluttered alongside coffee shops and record stores. He needed air, space, anything to dull the ache. That's when he met Jamie. They were leaning against a brick wall outside a bookstore, purple hair catching the sunlight, their leather jacket patched with punk band logos. Jamie, 27, non-binary, had a sharp wit and eyes that seemed to see through Ezra's guarded exterior. "You look like you're carrying the world," they said, offering a half-smile. Ezra, usually reserved, surprised himself by spilling the story. His dad's letter, the box, the betrayal. Jamie listened, not with pity but with a quiet understanding that made Ezra's chest loosen for the first time in days. "You ever think maybe he left that box for a reason?" Jamie asked, their voice low and thoughtful. They were sitting on a park bench now, the city humming around them. Ezra shook his head, his jaw tight. "What reason? To mess with my head." Jamie tilted their head, studying him. "Or to help you understand." That night, Ezra stared at the box again. It was cedar, intricately carved with patterns that reminded him of the native art his dad loved. He traced the grooves, his fingers lingering on the lock. Jamie's words echoed, "to help you understand." But understand what? That his dad had been living a lie? That Ezra had never really known him? He shoved the box under his bed, unwilling to face whatever truth it held. Days turned into weeks, and Ezra found himself drawn to Jamie. They'd meet at cafes, share late-night walks, talk about everything. Ezra's anger, Jamie's own journey of coming out as non-binary, the way the world sometimes felt too heavy to carry alone. Jamie was a freelance artist, their sketches bold and unapologetic, much like them. One evening, they showed Ezra a drawing of two figures under a cherry blossom tree, hands touching, hearts exposed. "It's us," Jamie said softly, and Ezra's heart stuttered. For the first time, he felt something other than loss. A spark, fragile but real. But the box loomed. Ezra couldn't shake the feeling that it held answers or destruction. He'd catch himself staring at it, wondering if opening it would unravel the last threads of his connection to his dad. Jamie urged him to face it, but Ezra resisted. "What if it's just more pain?" he asked one night, his voice raw. Jamie took his hand, their touch steady. "What if it's closure?" One rainy afternoon, Ezra's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Ezra, It's Abigail. I'm in Portland. Can we talk? His heart raced, torn between fury and longing. He didn't reply, but the message cracked something open. He pulled the box from under the bed, his hands shaking. Jamie was right, he couldn't keep running from it. He drove to a locksmith in Fremont, the box heavy in his lap. The old man behind the counter, with kind eyes and calloused hands, worked silently, popping the lock in minutes. Inside was a journal, a keychain with a tiny sailboat, and a letter addressed to my son. Ezra's throat tightened. He didn't open it, not yet. He needed Jamie there, needed their strength to face whatever came next. That evening, in Jamie's tiny apartment, Ezra opened the journal. The first page was dated 10 years ago, the day after his mom's funeral. I buried part of myself today, his dad had written, but I can't bury who I am forever. Page after page detailed David's struggle, his love for Ezra, his fear of losing him, his quiet moments of wearing dresses in secret, his terror of coming out. Ezra's eyes burned with tears. His dad hadn't left to escape him. He'd left to save himself. The letter was shorter, written in Abigail's new, softer handwriting. Ezra, this box is my heart. I hope one day you'll forgive me. The sailboat keychain was from their last fishing trip, a symbol of the bond they'd shared. Ezra clutched it, his chest heaving. Jamie sat beside him, silent but present, their hand on his shoulder. I need to see her, Ezra whispered. Jamie nodded. I'll go with you. The drive to Portland was quiet, the rain a steady companion. Ezra didn't know what he'd say to Abigail, but for the first time, he felt ready to listen. The journal had shown him a truth he hadn't expected. Love could be messy, painful, but it was still love. And maybe, just maybe, he could rebuild something with the woman his father had become. Ezra's knuckles whitened on the steering wheel as the Portland skyline came into view, the Willamette River glinting under a gray sky. Jamie sat beside him, sketching in a notebook, their presence a quiet anchor in the storm of Ezra's thoughts. He hadn't responded to Abigail's text, but the journal's words burned in his mind. I love you, Ezra, but I was suffocating. They pulled into a small cafe in Portland's Pearl District, where Abigail had asked to meet. Ezra's heart pounded as he scanned the room. There she was, in the corner, her silver hair pulled into a loose bun, wearing a soft blue cardigan. She looked different, softer, freer. But her eyes, those same hazel eyes Ezra had known his whole life, locked onto his. He froze, the weight of 16 months apart crashing over him. Ezra, Abigail said, standing, her voice trembling but warm. She moved toward him, hesitant, as if afraid he'd bolt. Jamie gave Ezra's hand a quick squeeze before stepping back, giving them space. Ezra didn't know what to say, so he just stood there, clutching the sailboat keychain in his pocket. I'm sorry, Abigail said, her voice breaking. I didn't know how to tell you. Ezra's throat tightened. You could have tried, he managed, his voice sharp with hurt. Abigail nodded, tears welling. I was scared you'd hate me. They sat, the air thick with unspoken questions. Abigail explained how she'd known she was transgender since she was a teenager, how she'd buried it to build a life with Ezra's mom, how her wife's death had unraveled the walls she'd built. I couldn't keep pretending, she said, but leaving you was the hardest thing I've ever done. Ezra listened, his anger warring with the love he still felt. He wanted to scream, to demand why she hadn't trusted him, but the journal's words held him back. She'd been fighting a battle he couldn't see. Jamie, sitting at a nearby table, caught his eye, their steady gaze reminding him to breathe. Over coffee, Abigail shared pieces of her new life, hormone therapy, a support group, a job at a community center for queer youth. She was building something, but her voice cracked when she spoke of missing Ezra. "I left the box because I hoped you'd find me," she said. "I hoped you'd want to." Ezra's fingers tightened around the keychain. "I don't know if I can forgive you yet," he admitted. Abigail nodded, her face a mix of pain and hope. "I'll wait," she said softly. Back in the car, Jamie didn't push him to talk. Instead, they played a soft punk playlist, letting the music fill the silence. When Ezra finally spoke, his voice was raw. "She's still my dad, but she's also someone else." Jamie reached for his hand. "She's both, and you don't have to figure it all out today." The next few weeks were a blur. Ezra returned to Seattle, the journal now a constant companion. He read it obsessively, piecing together the father he'd known and the woman Abigail was becoming. Some entries were mundane, grocery lists, work frustrations, but others were raw, like the one where Abigail described buying her first dress, her hands shaking with fear and joy. Ezra felt a strange mix of pride and pain. His dad had been brave, but that bravery had left him behind. Jamie became his refuge. They'd walk through Volunteer Park, sharing stories of their own struggles. Jamie's fight to be seen as non-binary in a world that loved boxes. Ezra's fear of losing the only parent he had left. One night, under a canopy of stars, Jamie kissed him, soft and tentative. Ezra kissed back, his heart racing, not just with desire but with the realization that he wasn't alone in this. But the past wasn't done with him. One evening, Ezra found a hidden note tucked in the journal's back cover, written in Abigail's old handwriting. "Ezra, if you're reading this, you've opened the box. There's one more thing I need you to know." It directed him to a storage unit in Tacoma, with a key taped to the page. Ezra's stomach churned. What else was Abigail hiding? He called Jamie, his voice unsteady. "I need you with me." They didn't hesitate. The next morning, they drove to Tacoma, the storage unit key heavy in Ezra's pocket. The unit was small, cluttered with relics of his childhood. His old bike, his mom's favorite lamp, a stack of photo albums. In the corner was a sealed envelope with his name on it. Ezra's hands shook as he opened it. Inside was a letter from his mom, written before her death. "Ezra, your dad loves you more than you'll ever know. If he ever finds the courage to be himself, promise me you'll try to understand." Ezra's vision blurred with tears. His mom had known, had always known, and she'd left this for him, a bridge to Abigail. Jamie pulled him close, letting him cry. "She knew you'd need this," they whispered. Ezra nodded, clutching the letter. For the first time, he felt a flicker of forgiveness, not just for Abigail, but for himself. Ezra sat on the floor of the storage unit, his mom's letter crumpled in his hand, the words searing into his heart. Jamie knelt beside him, their hands steady on his back, grounding him as the world tilted. The realization that his mom had known about Abigail, had loved her through it, felt like both a gift and a wound. "Why didn't she tell me?" Ezra whispered, his voice hoarse. Jamie's eyes softened. "Maybe she wanted to give your dad the chance to tell you himself." Ezra nodded, but the weight of it all, his mom's secret, Abigail's absence, the box, pressed against his chest. He wasn't ready to face Abigail again. Not yet. Back in Seattle, Ezra threw himself into work, managing a small record store in Fremont. The routine of sorting vinyls and bantering with customers kept his mind busy, but the journal and letters haunted him. He'd catch himself rereading passages, searching for clues to who Abigail had always been. One entry stood out. Ezra's coming out was the proudest day of my life. I wanted to tell him I understood, but I wasn't ready. The words stung. His dad had been there, silently carrying the same weight Ezra had, but never said a word. Jamie noticed the change in him. They'd meet after Ezra's shifts, sharing takeout on Ezra's couch, talking late into the night. Jamie's stories of fighting for their identity, of finding joy in their art, gave Ezra a new lens. "You're allowed to be angry," Jamie said one night, their voice firm. "But you're also allowed to love her." Ezra looked at them, their purple hair catching the lamplight, and felt something shift. He wasn't just falling for Jamie, he was learning to trust again. One evening, Jamie invited Ezra to an art gallery opening in Pioneer Square, where their latest piece was on display. The gallery buzzed with people, but Ezra only saw Jamie's work, a vibrant mural of two figures under a stormy sky, their hands reaching for each other. "It's about us," Jamie said, their voice shy but proud. Ezra's heart swelled. He pulled them close, kissing them in front of the crowd, not caring who saw. For a moment, the world was just them. But the past kept pulling him back. Abigail texted again, asking to meet, offering to come to Seattle. Ezra ignored it, his anger flaring anew. Why should he make it easy for her? Yet, the storage unit's contents gnawed at him. He hadn't looked through the photo albums, afraid of what they'd reveal. Jamie, sensing his hesitation, suggested they go back together. "You don't have to do this alone," they said. The Tacoma storage unit felt colder this time, the air thick with dust and memories. Ezra opened the first album, his breath catching at photos of his childhood. Him and his dad fishing, his mom laughing at a barbecue, the three of them at a Mariners game. Tucked between the pages was a Polaroid of David, younger, wearing a subtle touch of makeup, his smile tentative but real. Ezra's chest ached. His dad had been hiding even then, but the love in those photos was undeniable. Jamie pointed to a small box in the corner, labeled, "For Ezra." Inside was a collection of letters, all from Abigail, written over the years but never sent. Each one was an apology, a confession, a plea for understanding. "I wanted to be the father you needed," one read, "but I couldn't keep lying to myself." Ezra's hands trembled as he read, the words blurring through tears. That night he called Abigail. "I found the letters," he said, his voice steady but soft. "I'm not ready to forgive you, but I want to try." Abigail's sob on the other end broke something in him. Not anger, but the wall he'd built around his heart. They agreed to meet again, this time in Seattle on Ezra's terms. The meeting was set for a quiet park in Capitol Hill, the same one where Ezra and Jamie had first connected. Ezra was nervous, his palms sweaty as he waited on the bench. Jamie sat beside him, sketching to keep him calm. When Abigail arrived, she looked nervous too, her hands fidgeting with a scarf. "Thank you for giving me a chance," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. They talked for hours, about the past, about Abigail's journey, about the love that had never wavered, even through the silence. Ezra didn't have all the answers, but he felt lighter, like he could breathe again. Jamie's presence, steady and warm, reminded him that healing was possible. As the sun set, Abigail reached into her bag and pulled out a small gift, a new journal, blank and waiting. "For your story," she said. Ezra took it, his fingers brushing hers, and for the first time, he saw his dad in her eyes. Not gone, just transformed. The new journal sat on Ezra's nightstand, its blank pages both a promise and a challenge. He hadn't written in it yet, unsure of how to start his own story when Abigail's was still unfolding. But the park meeting had shifted something. He wasn't just angry anymore. He was curious, maybe even hopeful. Jamie became his constant, their relationship deepening with every shared moment. They'd spend weekends exploring Seattle's edges, hiking in the Cascades, browsing flea markets, or just lying on Ezra's couch, Jamie's head on his chest as they watched old sci-fi movies. Jamie's laughter, sharp and unfiltered, was a balm to Ezra's lingering pain. But even they couldn't quiet the questions that surfaced when he was alone. What did it mean to love Abigail now? Could he rebuild a relationship with someone who felt both familiar and foreign? Abigail visited Seattle every few weeks, each meeting a tentative step toward reconciliation. They'd walk through Pike Place Market, Abigail pointing out her favorite flower stalls, Ezra sharing stories from the record store. She was different now, more open, her laughter brighter. But Ezra still caught glimpses of his dad in her gestures, the way she tilted her head when she listened. It was comforting and disorienting all at once. One afternoon, Abigail invited Ezra and Jamie to a queer youth event at her community center in Portland. "I want you to see what I'm building," she said, her voice earnest. Ezra hesitated. He wasn't sure he was ready to see Abigail's new world, but Jamie's encouraging nod tipped the scale. "Let's go," they said, squeezing his hand. The community center was alive with color and noise, teens laughing and painting banners for a pride event. Abigail moved through the space with ease, her warmth drawing smiles from everyone. Ezra watched her comfort a shy teen, her hand gentle on their shoulder, and felt a pang of pride. This was the person who'd raised him. Still caring, still steady, just in a new form. Jamie, ever the artist, jumped into a mural project with the kids, their energy infectious. Ezra joined in, painting alongside a teen named Riley, who shared their own story of coming out as trans. "Your mom's amazing," Riley said, nodding toward Abigail. Ezra froze, then smiled. "Yeah, she is." The words felt strange but right. Back in Seattle, Ezra finally opened the new journal. He wrote about the day, about Abigail's laugh, Riley's courage, Jamie's unwavering support. The act of writing felt like untangling a knot, each word loosening the tension he'd carried for months. He showed the entry to Jamie, who read it with a soft smile. "You're finding your way," they said, kissing his forehead. But the past wasn't done with surprises. One evening, Ezra received an email from a lawyer in Tacoma, mentioning a trust fund his mom had set up before her death. It was small but included a note, "For Ezra, to chase your dreams, with love from Mom and David." The mention of David, not Abigail, hit hard. His parents had planned for his future together, even as David hid his truth. Ezra shared the email with Abigail during her next visit. Her eyes welled up. "Your mom wanted you to have freedom," she said. "I want that for you too." For the first time, Ezra hugged her, feeling the familiar strength in her arms, now softened by time and truth. Jamie suggested using the fund to start something new, a music program at the record store maybe, or a trip to see the world. "You've got a lot to give," they said, their eyes bright with belief in him. Ezra wasn't sure what he'd do yet, but the idea of a fresh start felt possible. As spring bloomed, Ezra and Abigail grew closer, their conversations easier, their silences less heavy. Jamie was there through it all, their love a steady current pulling Ezra forward. One night, under the cherry blossoms in Volunteer Park, Ezra took Jamie's hand. "I'm scared," he admitted, "but I'm ready to figure this out with you with her." Jamie smiled, their fingers tightening around his. "We'll figure it out together." The cherry blossoms were in full bloom when Ezra decided to host a small gathering at the record store, a celebration of new beginnings. He'd used part of the trust fund to start a weekly music night for queer youth, a place where they could play, listen, and be themselves. The store was packed, fairy lights strung across the ceiling, vinyl spinning old soul records. Jamie's mural, a vibrant explosion of color, hung on the wall, a testament to their shared journey. Abigail was there, her smile wide as she chatted with the teens, her presence a quiet anchor. Ezra watched her from across the room, his heart full. She wasn't just his dad anymore, nor just Abigail. She was both, a bridge between his past and his future. He'd spent months wrestling with anger, but now he saw her courage, her love, her humanity. Jamie sidled up, their arm brushing his. "You did this?" they said, nodding at the crowd. Ezra shook his head. "We did this." He pulled them close, their warmth steadying him. The night felt like a victory, not just for him, but for everyone in the room who'd ever felt unseen. Later, Abigail pulled Ezra aside. "I'm proud of you," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "I was afraid I'd lose you, but you've built something beautiful." Ezra's throat tightened. "I was afraid I'd lost you," he admitted. "But I think we're finding each other again." Abigail hugged him, and for the first time in years, Ezra felt whole. The music night became a tradition, a space where Ezra, Jamie, and Abigail could all be themselves. Ezra's journal filled with stories, not just of pain, but of hope, love, and growth. He wrote about Jamie's laughter, Abigail's resilience, and his own journey to forgive. Each page was a step toward healing, a reminder that love could bend without breaking. One quiet evening, Ezra and Jamie sat on their favorite bench in Volunteer Park, the city glowing below. The sailboat keychain dangled from Ezra's keys, a small piece of his past carried into his future. "I used to think love meant holding on," he said, his voice soft. "Now I think it means letting people grow." Jamie smiled, their hand finding his, and growing with them. The box, the journal, the letters, they'd nearly shattered him, but they'd also rebuilt him. Abigail's gift wasn't just her truth. It was the chance for Ezra to find his own. With Jamie by his side and Abigail back in his life, he felt ready to face whatever came next. Not with fear, but with love.